Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video I want to go over how to configure an IDS and test it against a web server to detect denial of service attacks. First things first, I want to make sure that it is understood this video is for educational purposes only. I am not making this video for anyone to go and try to attack a web server or a network that you don't have access to or you're not authorized to run pen testing on. If you want to follow along, you can do so on your private home lab, and again, or if you have permission to run commands on a private network. Just make sure that you understand this is for educational purposes only. So again, what's an IDS? It stands for Intrusion Detection System. For this example, I'm going to be using Snort. Snort is basically a network sniffer, and we're going to be showing how to do this using Kali Linux. I believe I'm using version 25.4. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we want to do is install Snort. So we run apt install Snort with a -y option. Okay, this is going to take a few minutes, so I'm just going to pause the video real quick and we'll come back once it's done installing it. Okay, it's at 98%, should be almost done. Let's just wait a few more seconds. There we go. And let's run snort -- version, and we're running version 3.11. Also want to make sure I have all the files that I need. Yep, we have snort defaults and rules. Okay, we're good to go. Okay, so there's a pre-default configuration file within Snort. We need to modify it in order to make sure that we're just targeting our web server for this example. And there's a few other things that we need to add in there to make sure that we point into the rules that we want to test for. So let's go ahead and do that. So we want to edit etc snort.lua. So this is the new configuration file for Snort 3. If you've used the previous version, I believe it would have been snort.conf. So in here, the first thing we want to update is this entry right here. Instead of any, I just want to get data from 192.168.1.101, which is my web server. So any potential denial of service DoS attacks targeting this IP address should be captured. Okay, so this is good. External net, we're going to leave as any because we want to capture any attacks from any IP address. So that's good. Next thing we want to configure is the rules file, which is this block of data right here. We don't need this right here. We don't need these pre-configured lines. We don't want to use the variables, default variables within Snort. We want to use our own. Okay, so we're going to do rules equals open bracket include etc snort rules local.rules. There's 2 brackets. Close that. So here what we're telling is, okay, Snort, look at the rules that are going to be located within this file path, etc snort rules local.rules. Then we want to go to the end of the file and we want to enable alert logging. So we want to do alert fast equals, and we'll do file equals true, file name var log snort alert underscore fast.txt, and you want to make sure this file is created or it's going to error out when you try to capture the data. So that's all we need for what we're trying to accomplish right now. So I'm just going to save and exit. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create the rules that we want to apply for these tests that we want to do. So we're going to edit etc snort rules. I'm sorry, local rules. Okay. So it's an empty file. So I'm just going to add a few rules. We're going to start with alert TCP from any connection to 192.168.1.101 on port 80. So that's my web server. And we want to look for, well, the message we're going to output is DoS SYN Flood on Web Server. We need to give it a flag for SYN Flood. The detection filter, it's going to be track by source, count 50, every 5 seconds, and then we need to give it an ID number. And revision 1. So basically, so any IP targeting 192.168.1.101 on port 80 is going to message. It's going to output a message saying DoS SYN Flood on web server with the detection. So if it happens 50 times every 5 seconds, that alert's going to be triggered. So let's add another one. Alert HTTP any I'm missing this right here. Any on 192.168.1.101. Again, port 80. Message. DoS HTTP flood my website. So you would replace my website with whatever URL you have for your website. Again, this is just an example. Detection filter, track by source. We're going to do count 30. Again, these numbers, they can vary. You can set it up to whatever you want. Seconds, 5 seconds. So it's just whatever makes sense to you. We'll give it a new seed ID. 2. And we'll do one more. We'll do ping. So we'll do alert ICMP any 192.168.1.101. Instead of a port number, we're just going to do any. Message DoS ICMP Flood. Detection filter, tracked by source, count 100 every 5 seconds. We need an ID. 3. Revision 1. And I think that's good for now. So we'll have those 3 alerts, those 3 rules set up, right? So what else do we need now? So we set up the rules. We can edit the config file. So now we need to create touch var log snort alert fast.txt, I believe it is. So we're creating an empty file in var log snort. That's where the logs are going to be written to. So I believe that's all we need. So now what I want to do is I'm just going to copy and paste the command we need in order to actually have Snort listen for those rules, and I'll explain it right now. So again, so we're calling Snort. We're telling it what the configuration file is. That's what the -c is for. So this is the configuration file, snort.lua. We're using the interface 0, which is the default interface for this VM. -r for the rules file. We're specifying use these rule files, the local.rules, and that's the file that we just edited. We're telling it to write logs to var log snort with the file alert underscore fast, and telling it that the file location is true. Okay, so we have one error message. Let's see what that is. Two error messages. So I might have a typo in here. Incomplete rule. I think I know what it is. Yeah. Let's try that again. Okay, so when you see it like this, so it's listening. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the screen like this, and then I'm going to run tail-f var log snort alert. So there's nothing going on right now. And what I'm going to do now, so I'm going to split the screen in two. Let me fix this again. Fix the size. Okay, so that's better. So this is my server A. So I'm going to use server A to try to do a ping flood onto my web server. So if we do ping-f and then the IP 192.168.1.101, what should happen is, so it's going to be a whole bunch of ping requests in here, ICMP. You should see the file in here, the log file running in here, since we have Snort running and listening for those rules. And there we go. So we can stop that, and we can see that's here's the message, DoS ICMP Flood. So we now have just created a rule that tells us, hey, your web server is potentially being targeted as a, with a denial of service, a DoS attack, which ICMP from this IP address, which is server A. Let's confirm that. Here we go, 192.168.1.60, and the target IP is 192.168.1.101, which is my web server. Let's see if it works with the other. With the other alerts that we created. So I'm trying to see. I'm not sure if this is going to work on this server. Let's see. hping3 -s on port 80 flood, and then the IP. So again, same thing. This is for doing a denial of service in the web server. Option, what am I missing? Invalid option -ll. I need two right here. There we go. Same thing. So we're going to stop that. And now we see it's a different message. DoS SYN Flood on web server. Priority is a TCP. So as you can see now, it's also telling us where it's coming from, 192.168.1.60. And it's actually giving us on different port numbers. You see that? So that's one trigger that you can look at, saying, hey, yeah, this is a DoS attack. And it's attacking port 80 which is usually HTTP on your web server on 192.168.1.101. You can run this in the background, so that way you have your terminal, accessible to you for anything else you want to run. Also, the log files, what you can do, you can configure a mail server that will, upon this being triggered, it will send an email to a specific email address. So that way you don't have to be looking at the log files all the time. But again, you can configure a web server within, which in this system, this setup, that will send you an email saying, hey, DoS SYN Flood on web server from IP such and such, or you can tell it whatever you want it to tell you. Again, this was just a quick way of showing how to set up an IDS using Snort, how to configure 3 different set of rules to trigger or to look for in the event that a web server gets attacked. So we demonstrated that from this other server, and then we saw the logs files that were triggered. Again, this is just for educational purposes. I am not encouraging you to go and try to replicate this in any malicious way. This is not what this is for. This is for you to learn to protect yourself, protect your network, protect your systems, and just educational purposes only. Hope you liked the video. Leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.